All right, I think that we are officially live here. I'll give it a few minutes or just a minute or two to let everyone else join. There we go. Just got the notification on YouTube that we're live, so just going to share this around on my Instagram real quick and let everyone join here. Just give me 1 second to join or to spread the message. Let everyone join in here. We will start this in a sec. Alrighty, posted that on Instagram. Just got to give it another second just to give people a chance to join in here. If anyone's tuning in, let me know where you guys are tuning in from. I'm coming at you guys from Canada, kind of near Toronto right now, but let me know where you guys are coming in from. Got definitely some cool stuff to discuss today that I'm pretty excited about. And I guess we'll just give it another second here and we'll dive right into it. But, as we were posting online earlier, as the title of this video was, in this live stream, we're going to be talking a bit more about music production. I know the last live stream I had, I think about a week ago, we were talking about just about kind of everything, making beats, selling beats, AI in music, a whole bunch of stuff. Had a lot of good questions from you guys answered as well in the live stream. In this live stream, we're going to be talking about making beats more specifically. And I have some really cool examples. I actually have a project file up on the window here of a beat that I made that is one of my most popular beats right now that I'm really excited to show you guys. So I'm gonna get started on this, but yeah, so as always, thank you guys so much for tuning into this live stream. No stress if I know some people like to watch it later, some people like to come back and watch it. We're keeping all these live stream on the YouTube channel as well, so you can always tune back and watch at a later date. And I'm sure if you're watching this, you may or you may not be familiar with I'm going to be talking about it a bit in the live stream, but our website link is, I think if you click the link in the description, it'll take you through the website I have up here. This is an amazing AI tool that I use all the time when it comes to kind of all sorts of things with music production, making beats, making remixes, making content, making custom beats for people. This is basically a tool, a website that you can upload music to, split your song any different way. It does a really impressive job of splitting out vocals, instrumentals, pianos, drums, guitars, anything that you can think of, you name it. I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but I believe that the link to this website will be in the description, so definitely check that out. There's also mobile apps too, which is pretty sweet. And I see someone's comment there, so hey, thanks for joining. I would definitely want to dive right into this one because I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this. But in this live stream, I want to talk a lot about music production and give you guys some specific examples. Now, I use FL Studio, and the program that I have up here is FL Studio, I think 20 or 21. It's FL Studio. I've been a long time user of FL Studio for over a decade now. But I think that a lot of the stuff that, I'm going to showcase in this video and show you guys how I made this beat, I think it can be applied to all sorts of, different softwares and music programs out there. So I'm really excited to give you guys kind of, my vision when it comes to making music, some of the technical things that I do and I look for when making a beat. And like I said, this one I'm really excited about because this is a beat that I've posted maybe like 2 months ago, 1 or 2 months ago, and it's been doing, really well, really good numbers, good views, good sales. A lot of people on Instagram have been really liking this one. I want to play a little bit of it so you guys can just get the context of it. I'm going to play a little bit of it, probably start at the intro, then the verse, then the hook. I'll probably stop at like 1:30 in here. If there's any issues, obviously, with the volume, let me know. But this is, the beat that I'm going to be breaking down for you guys. right, so I'm gonna stop it there, but that's the gist of it. That's the beat that I'm gonna break down for you guys. And definitely, if you have any questions, about this beat making, anything else you want me to discuss, anything about La La La, anything, any comments, any questions, leave them down in the live chat there, and I'll be sure to answer every one. But yeah, so this is a beat that I made recently. If you guys aren't familiar with my stuff, I'd say I produce a lot of hip hop beats, but a lot of my beats have kind of influence from a lot of different genres. Pop, R&B, hip hop, rap, trap, electronic music. I'm such a diverse producer, and I really think that beats like this kind of explore a lot of different genres. And I think that's one reason why this beat, might be doing the numbers that it does, is because I think it, appeals to a lot of different people. And again, if there's any a lot of background noise or anything sounds off the audio, definitely let me know. But so yeah, as you can see in the beat, and when you guys heard it, a lot of the beat revolves around a couple of different chords. And if you look at track 1 here in my FL Studio, the chords that I set up, these chords here basically play for the duration of the song. When it comes to making beats, I don't often do more than maybe, 4 chords. And once I set up, a 4 bar or, 2 bar, whatever, 2 or 4 bar loop, basically 4 different chords. When I make kind of a simple chord progression like this, I don't often change throughout the song. And, I know there's a lot of songs out there that have different chord changes when it comes to, the pre-hook or the bridge, or the hook changes key. There's a lot of really talented, musicians out there in different genres all throughout time that have done stuff like that. A lot of my beats are, I don't want to say repetitive in a, in a negative way, but I kind of am able to get away with, keeping my beats quote unquote simple like this, and, using the same chords through 90% of the track by taking away and adding certain elements. When it comes to making a beat, usually what I'll do is, whenever I start and I open FL Studio from scratch and I put together just the chords, it usually is like a 4 or 8 bar loop that I start. And I add the drums, and I add the chords, and I add, anything that I want to add. And then as the song, progresses, I take away certain things and add certain things back in. Like the intro starts off with the chords and the vocal sample. The verse, you can see a little bit more, and then in the chorus here, there's a lot of stuff. So I'm kind of able to get away with, having 4 or 5 chords throughout the whole beat by adding and taking away things. And I get a lot of, inspiration from that, from progressive house music. If anyone out there listens to, EDM, I know a lot of early Avicii tracks had this, where they started off where it was just 4 chords through the whole song, but they built it up, and they add risers and effects and different layers, and they take it away, but it's all the same chords. So that's what I did when I started this beat, was I came up with this chord progression here, and I'll play it. So again, just 4 chords. It's, simple, but it's kind of bright. I am using, I don't know why this is broken. Splice has been giving me some issues today, but I definitely pay for my subscription there. There's a plugin called Astra, and it's just a really simple, kind of electric piano, kind of little synth sound. I like my chords to be kind of simple, not too many changes. A lot of my beats just have 4 chords, where I wouldn't even add this 5th chord in here. I would just keep it really, really simple. But I also have a little bit of a strum notion between the chords here. You can see that when the notes play, they don't start right at 0. They kind of have that effect where it kind of is a little bit smoother. And I think that the effects on it, I have RC20, one of my favorite effects ever. Just a little bit of vinyl noise gives it a little just kind of that old school feeling a little bit. Yeah, I love those chords. It's happy, it's bright, it's simple. It's such like a warm feeling, and that's one thing that I really wanted to try when I made this beat. And I guess that's another kind of good thing to, consider whenever you're making a song is what's the feeling that you want to, convey. And whenever I make beats, that's always something I try and do is just like I always want my beats to have some sort of feeling in them, right? Thanks, man. I always want my beats to just like I want people to feel like some type of way, right? Whether they feel happy or they feel like energetic or enthusiastic or they're just taken to a different place. Like I love for there to be emotion in my songs. A lot of the stuff that I do is like happy, kind of upbeat stuff. It comes naturally to me like this. But again, I always try and have some sort of emotion with my beats. So that's how I started this beat. I had these chords. Just a simple, 4-bar loop with these 5 chords playing over and over. So the next element that I added to this beat, I always love adding like little, kind of like catchy elements, right? I'm a big fan of like, when I got into making beats, I was studying things like Kanye's like, College Dropout album, right? And he had songs like Through the Wire and All Falls Down and this stuff where it's like these vocal samples going on. And I got into making beats studying like sampled hip hop stuff, Jay Dilla, Pete Rock, Kanye obviously. And these days like I don't want to use third party samples because a lot of people can easily monetize their stuff through Spotify, and anyone can put their stuff on Apple Music, right? So I want to keep my beats like royalty free and avoid those samples, but I still want to capture that sampled feel because it's something I just love. So I found this really like cool vocal sample that just plays like this. It's kind of probably gonna sound weird on its own, but it's like this. I also love that too because like as a producer, like I'm obviously not the person making, recording my vocals or singing or rapping over a beat. So for me as just like a listener of like instrumental music, like I love my stuff to have kind of like a human feel to it, right? And so that's why like a lot of my beats, like I'll have these vocal samples, but playing them together sounds like this. Just already sets the mood right there. We had a specific video, and I'm just closing this window here. But we had a specific video on the Lullaby channel. If you check out some of the videos that we had, I had a video recently, actually about how I used Lullaby. This website here. I recently took a song, I ran it through Lullaby, I separated all the different all the different stems right here. I put it into FL Studio and I basically recreated a song that was, I think, #1 on Spotify at the time. So I could figure out how these popular songs are, making their music and structuring it. I learn best by like reverse engineering and dissecting stuff. And I'm like a very like visual kind of learner when it comes to music production or anything for that sense. So I recently, guys should definitely check out the video. It's on our channel here. But I took out all the stems from a song and I figured out how popular songs, how to structure them. And kind of the answer that I figured out was like a lot of songs work in kind of 4-bar increments. And I keep that in mind. Like my intro here is 4 bars. You'll see my verse here, it's 16 bars. But when you break it down, it's 4, 4, 4, and 4, right? Everything is in 4-bar intervals. The chorus here that I played earlier, you can see it's 8 bars here, but even just looking at what's going on, we have 4 bars where there's not a whole lot going on, and then the second 4 bars there's everything going on. So everything is in kind of a 4-bar pattern, and that's one thing I always try and keep in mind, especially when building out the rest of a beat like this. So moving into the verse, which is the next 4 bars, it precedes the 4 bars of the intro. The verse here, I always like to split up my verses like, I like things to progress as they go along. So when I play like the verse, you can see here that like as the verse progresses, 808s come in, synth chords come in. Not everything plays at the start. It kind of builds towards the chorus. And again, just keeping that kind of mindset of, building tension through as the song goes on. That's one thing that I always like to do. So we bring in some drums like this, right? Kind of simple in the beginning. And you can see that's 4 bars. Next 4 bars, we're gonna bring in some like 808s. And then again, next 4 bars, bring in some more stuff. Alright, so let's break this down a little bit. We obviously have the chords that we were playing in the beginning. The drums are pretty simple to start. I just have some basic hi-hats and snares. And then I layer it out with some other like hi-hats. And then I have these other hi-hats too. As the song progresses, kind of change it up a bit. But that's like pretty simple. Nothing like too complex. Someone was asking here, is there velocity differences on the hi-hats? On these ones, so the ones that I've programmed in, they're just straight up hi-hats. Just like you can see, the velocity is just the same. When I start bringing in like loops and kind of different layers, like the live hi-hats, you can see the waveform is a little bit different there. And then obviously this one that I bring in too. So, I mean, I love stacking my drums like this. I think that it's definitely a good idea to add a little bit of, velocity differences to hi-hats, just to keep things interesting, right? It's kind of like a lot of good energy, right? And then, going back to the chords, so it's the same chords from the intro, obviously. But I've been doing a lot of these things where, like, I bring in, like, 1 or 2 notes, and I kind of play it in a harmony. And I kind of got the idea from I was studying pop music from like a decade ago. Like that's kind of one of my guilty pleasures is I love pop music like Katy Perry, Lady Gaga. I was going back and I was listening to like all these songs from like 10 years ago, like songs that, I grew up with that were on the radio. And all these like producers like Dr. Luke, Max Martin, some of these big pop producers, a lot of times what they do in the choruses of their songs is they play, their chords, and they'll have this like one note like sitting over top the whole time. And it's kind of like another layer to it a little bit. So I've been doing that with some of my beats. So I found these bells that are just like this. It's playing the same notes over and over and over, right? And you can see here, even on track 8, how long it plays. But with the chords, it kind of sounds like this. It's like almost a percussive element, right? And like, even listening to like funk songs or like songs that have like that, funk guitar, right? Like Uptown Funk. There's all these other songs that have like the guitar like that. A lot of people who can play the guitar that well and do like a funk strumming pattern almost use it as a percussive element where they're just, they have their chords, but then they're just playing like a couple different notes, strumming it in a certain way. And that's kind of what I've done with this one, right? it kind of changes up the sound, but not too much, if that makes sense. And then as the verse progresses, I bring in these 808s. Now these 808s are the same low end note as the chords. A lot of my bass lines are just like that. I wish I kind of was a little bit better at programming, more creative bass lines, but my kind of like philosophy when it comes to, bass lines and music production in general is I like to have like a really thick wall of sound, I guess. When I look at music, it's like an EQ spectrum, right? I mean, if I load up just an equalizer here, you can see like there's the different frequencies, obviously, low end and high end. I like to make sure that like my beat covers all areas of the frequency spectrum. I like to have a really thick bass line that's really low, really deep, fills out the bass line, that low end. I like to have punchy drums and chords and all these layers that fill out the kind of mid-range section. And then I like to add things like those vocal samples or certain melodies that kind of fill up the high end. So for me as a producer, like I'm always trying to fill up that kind of frequency spectrum. I don't, I think a lot of people would say like, if you're worried about adding too much stuff to your songs, and I think it's just about, who you are as an artist or a producer. Like I love adding a lot of stuff to my songs, and I love not overproducing, but I love just adding like so much more stuff, because like I listen to a lot of instrumental music, so I need to make sure that if someone is listening to this without the intention of rapping or singing over it, is it still gonna sound like a completed song, right? And then when the artist like sings or raps over it, that's like the cherry on top, right? They take something that's pretty much finished and they add just a whole new level to it. So yeah, the long way of saying the 808s are just the bottom end of the chords here. So again, play that for 4 bars. Next 4 bars, we're going to change it. And I want to talk about this 4 bars here. So I think one thing that works really well about this was I had that idea for the bells, right? That plays this kind of like, pattern on every like third beat, that kind of triplet bell pattern. I have these synth sounds that I absolutely love using, and I know so many people really like when I use them. It's from Astra too, one of Splice's plugin. It's a really cool sound. And again, that's the same as the chords that I originally made, just a little bit of a different pattern, a little bit of different energy to them. And it kind of plays well with the bells that I made. It's hard to say. It's those notes that go well together, right? So, as I was saying, I kind of get by producing songs that are kind of repetitive for the most part by adding and taking away certain elements. And one reason I'm able to do that is adding kind of transition sounds. And this is something that I learned from studying, Avicii, Swedish House Mafia, all these like big EDM artists, adding effects and risers and sweeps and crashes and transitions is such an important part of music, because it kind of builds energy. And like I was saying in the beginning, I want my beats to have some type of energy involved with it. So towards the end of this verse, I do a couple things. I don't exactly remember why I came up with this little like whistle kind of melody. I think it just kind of like, these chords kind of reminded me of like old school, like kind of R&B, hip hop a little bit. So I added that, and that's just a really simple sound too. I made this and just 3x oscillator by FL Studio. It's one of the default plugins. It's just a basic sine wave. People are always asking me what plugins I use, and like this is just a default one, and it's just a really simple plugin. Like it's nothing fancy. Like if I uploaded a 3x oscillator here, I think it's literally that. You can like so it's really simple like that. And then obviously I have like the Porto turned on and stuff. There's not even effects on that. It's just straight up a sine wave. But it kind of sounds good. And then also I have like the old school snare roll, right? From, you know, all the classic hip hop songs. So I love that, right? And then you get the crashes and risers. All that stuff is just ear candy, basically. But you can see here, I'm at the end of the verse 1, you know, getting into the hook. The next 4 bar segment, or the next 8 bars that's broken up 4 bars and 4 bars. I'll play it here, just for anyone else tuning in. But you'll see that after 4 bars, I change things and I add a lot of different other elements. So probably, I guess, the most, you know, noticeable change with the chorus here is this kind of trumpet melody that I came up with. I wanted this beat to sound like, I don't know what the word, like kind of epic, kind of anthem-like, right? I wanted to just have like a really big chorus, and you know, even with that, I wanted to have something that is just like memorable. And I think that's one thing that like a lot of people like about my beats is that, you know, if you were a rapper or a singer, you know, writing to this, I always try and make something that as soon as people hear it, they get an idea for something, or they hear a certain melody and it, you know, they're like, oh, I can sing like that or something like that. So I came up with this trumpet melody. Kind of play with that. And my like kind of like philosophy or mindset when it comes to melodies like this is repetition. And I think that repetition is the best way to get stuck in someone's head, obviously. So like the melody you can see here, it's basically playing the same thing twice. Just on the second round, it has a little bit of like a resolving note there. And you can see in the chorus, it just plays that basically 4 times over, which, how many times is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 times. It plays this like little melody, I guess, 8 times if my math is right. So that plays kind of, you know, simple for the next, you know, the next 4 bars, and then these following 4 bars, I bring a lot of more stuff. I mean, it sounds like a lot going on, but really it's nothing too new once we've established the chords that we have. The drums are the pretty much the same for the most part. I do bring a kick drum in, which gives it a little bit more energy. A little bit more kick drums than the 808s, and I think I learned that from a Metro Boomin video, where you can see like the 808s are a little bit more sparse than the kick, right? More kicks than the 808s. And again, these 808s go with the chords there. I have the synth chords that I brought in at the end of the verse, kind of teased what was upcoming. I was talking earlier about like, you know, filling up all kind of areas of the frequency spectrum. So I like to add a lot of layers, you know, especially with the chords, but also sometimes the melodies. We had the trumpet on its own in this first half, this kind of open part here. When everything comes in, I felt like the trumpet was a little bit too empty. So I added basically just another layer of it pitched down an octave. And then the two kind of played together, you know, in two different octaves, gives it a little bit more depth. And I add, you know, a little bit more drums, right? Something a little bit different. I add these electric piano sounds. And that's the same as the chords, just another layer. And it's actually sitting pretty quietly in the mix, but it's just something, again, to just give it a little bit more depth. And I think that's one thing that a lot of, you know, producers kind of miss out on, is adding depth to their tracks. I mean, like these chords, you know, it's not just 3 notes. There's like, this chord has, I don't know, 6 different notes here. It's got a root note and it's got a whole bunch of other ones, right? Even though it's 5 chords, like I said, you know, you have the strumming pattern, the different velocities going on, and you have, you know, these harmony notes here. So it's very like a thick sound, and that's one thing that I love doing, and I think one thing that works really well for my beats. I had these sounds too. Those kind of classic like trap sounds. And it kind of goes well with like the trumpet, right? And I kind of add more brass sounds that are the same as the chords, but it just add another layer, right? I think it's important too, just to know like, what's your goal with the song, right? This one, I wanted to be anthem-like. I wanted to be epic. And when I think of songs like that, you know, epic songs, I like those orchestral elements. I like the brass, right? The brass stabs that you would hear in like a soundtrack or something like that, right? And I have, you know, more synth chords here. That's playing the same pattern as like these synth chords too. And it's kind of like, I don't know, like these, I guess I got the idea from the chords, right? That are these really simple, like, I feel like almost like video game style sounds. It's kind of like a little lo-fi, kind of like just simple electronic, little cute pop. There's, like I said, there's a lot of different things going on with this beat when you look at it that way, but everything has like a place and a purpose, right? So it's like these synth chords are just basically added into the chorus to make these synth chords, I'm kind of having trouble speaking this evening, to make these ones like kind of stand out a little bit more and add more depth to it, right? So even though, you know, I have this kind of like cutesy electronic sound, this lo-fi sound, and all of these like kind of, you know, triumphant brass samples and hard-hitting drums, everything has like a place and a purpose. And that's something I always try and keep in mind. So my kind of like ideas for building up the rest of the song was to kind of follow suit from the first half. So it's set up the same way where, you know, the verse is 16 bars, but it's split up into 2 8-bar, you know, increments. And then from that, I then split up into 4 bars, you know, another 4 bars, another 4 bars, and 4. And when I'm doing that, you know, you can see that there's certain things that change, right? These 4 bars here brings in these hi-hats that aren't in the previous 4 bars. These next 8 bars, the chords dip out, but then halfway through that, these other elements come in. So I'm always kind of like picking and choosing certain elements to go like in specific places. Again, this is all just to keep the beat interesting, right? Because, like I said, this beat is essentially 5 chords that play over and over. The drums too, you can see the hi-hats, just keep playing over and over and over, right? I need to kind of add and take away certain elements in specific parts to keep this beat interesting. So this is how second verse sounds. So it kind of carries that vibe, but builds on it a little bit. Next 4 bars, change it up. You can see I'm just constantly taking away and adding back certain elements. So these kind of 8 bars I kind of want to talk about. This is the second half of verse 2. Kind of, a lot of stuff to dissect here. I started out by dropping out the kick drums. So all of a sudden it's a little bit of a mood change, right? All of a sudden, the 808s come in, which are in the really deep end, but then the kick drum isn't there. So it kind of grabs your ear a different way. And I want to talk about kind of these sections here. Right, the 808 goes away there. These are just little things that I feel like the listener or the songwriter or the rapper, the singer, the artist, like I feel like they're subliminally gonna pick up on certain things, right? They're gonna be like, hey, that they just kind of hit me a certain way, right? It keeps things interesting, right? And it just kind of keeps, different energy. I drop out the snares there, so it's like a little bit of what just happened. It feels a little bit different, right? And again, this chorus is built the same way as the first chorus, right? 4 bars where it's different elements. Second 4 bars, bring a lot of new stuff. And that's the outro there. Simple fade out. I kind of keep that energy, the same energy going from the chorus. I just drop out that main trumpet melody, right? Everything else is the same. So you're still ending on that high note, right? I think that when you're building like a song out and you're thinking about all the structures, I kind of like look at it like, sometimes my verses have all the elements and then my choruses have very, minimal elements. Other times, it's the flip side. And other times my outro will have, like this one, keep the song going on that high note, that high energy. Other times my outros will be kind of, bare bones, almost like reflective of the intro where there's not too much going on. I don't think that there's really like kind of like a right or wrong way to do it, but I think that it's important to have these kind of different sections where there's, a lot or not a lot going on, right? And I think, when I hear beats from producers and people ask me to critique their songs, a lot of times, like, I think that producers are kind of missing these sections, right? And this is, one thing that I've learned from working with artists. One thing that I've learned from, studying different songs is just to have like all these kind of different energies and exciting things going on, and just kind of help the song progress, right? If you guys have any questions like with this beat, that's how like I go with, structuring it and producing it. Again, we had a video on the La 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 YouTube channel, and if you guys haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button too, because we post videos pretty often here. But I did have one video where, I did this with another song, a popular song that was on Spotify, and I broke it all down, right? And I did the same thing, and I've been doing that formula with my own beats. I had one, I've been getting a lot of comments on this beat, and a lot of producers have been asking me which plugins I use, and we're working on a video for the channel where I'm going to be talking more about how to produce a beat from scratch. I know that this was kind of a finished one. I feel like I'll definitely talk about like the plugins that I use, but I feel like as a producer, there's still a lot of like free resources out there that you don't need all of like the fanciest plugins. For a while I was just using stock sounds in FL Studio, and then kind of exploring more as time progresses. But in this specific beat, I use Astra VST a lot. Like these chords are from Astra, which is by Splice. The drums are just their own drums, right? Expand 2 is a pretty cool plugin. Lots of good sounds there. This is just kind of like a little vibraphone, I guess, sound. I love Hallian Sonic. I think I have Hallian Sonic 3. A lot of good, just like kind of, quote unquote live sounds. But Astra is kind of a little bit of a hidden gem that has some really, really cool sounds, especially if you want to make like, I don't know, like I love making just like, polished sounds that sound very bright, kind of commercial sounds, radio ready sounds. Astra's a really good plugin for that. Nexus is a really good plugin for that too, so I definitely use Nexus a lot. This was the electric piano sound, and that's from Keyscape. I've had Keyscape for, I don't know, maybe a year now, and I've been using it like crazy. It's such a good plugin. I love that sound. Just that warm feeling, right? This one was from Nexus. Again, that one from Nexus too, right? It's these bright commercial sounds that I love to use. That one we talked about, just a 3x oscillator there. Kind of a little bit of a hidden gem, I would say. Again, Astra. And that's just a wave sample. Some of the mixing plugins that I use too. So I get a lot of questions too from a lot of producers talking about how I mix and master my beats. I think a lot of it, I would say, like a big part of getting a good mix is definitely comes down to like sound selection, but also just how you produce your songs, right? And that's why like I would really recommend like, going on La La La, splitting a couple songs. I think that this is like the best way to learn music production, because I have a lot of beats that like I make, and they don't really need a whole lot of mixing and mastering, because I know how to produce the song, and how to put things in certain places, and paint the picture of the whole EQ spectrum, use those deep bass lines, use those melodies, use those harmonies, put the drums like this, layer them like that. I feel like, if you understand production in that sense, you don't really need to focus on mixing, mastering a whole lot. Like it becomes easier, right? And like I said, there's songs that like this one, where I produce it, it doesn't need a whole lot of mixing and mastering. Just because I get the like the beat is all where it needs to be. Um, and that's just one thing like I've learned, by going on Lullaby, dissecting songs, seeing how they're producing stuff. Like I'm such a visual learner, so that stuff is super important to me. But this is kind of how I mix and master my beats. So on my master channel, I always have a limiter. A little bit of a controversial take here because I know there's a lot of producers who say like, don't use a limiter because it's gonna, limit your beats. I think a lot of that is especially true for like trap beats where you want to get that 808, you want to get that distortion and that clipping a little bit. I like to make my songs like a little bit more, I mean, I'm not producing that style. Like, so a limiter kind of helps contain my songs, all the million layers that I have, all those, deep bass lines and bright melodies, kind of contains them a little bit. And I think in a lot of ways, kind of gives it a little bit more energy too. Like it kind of squeezes things together a little bit. So I'm using Brick Wall Limiter by T-Rax or T-Rax. But for a while, like for years, I just used the default FL Studio one. I think if you open up a FL Studio project file, there's like a default limiter. I kept that on for like a million years and was totally fine with that. I also just cut off the high ends and the low ends just a little bit, just to avoid like those frequencies that are a little bit harsh and that no one's really hearing. I'll just scroll through like some of my favorite like effects here. So some of these effects are like artistic effects, like things for sound design. Other times it's things that are for like quality and mixing mastering stuff. So this was kind of the main like electric piano sound. I talked about how I had RC20, which is a really cool plugin. Kind of gives it like that, vinyl type of feeling, and just a little bit of a limiter here that kind of, increases frequencies and gives it a little bit more color, right? I thought it was something a little bit flat on its own. I think a lot of the drums, like, I don't add much, and if I were to add anything, sometimes I just add a an amplifier plugin. It's just something that, again, can kind of act as a little bit of a limiter and kind of, give your beats a little bit more oomph, I guess. These brass tabs, I don't even have anything. These synth plucks, I just have, again, a little bit of a limiter on here. Same with this one, like mixing a beat doesn't take me a whole lot of time, right? Even the low trumpet, again, just a little bit of amplifier to give it a little more life. That one, just some EQ and a little multi-band limiter here. Nothing on that trumpet, just straight up from the VST. Same with these bells, right? That vocal loop, I'm kind of actually surprised at how like little effects I have added to this stuff, right? Nothing on the 808. The hi-hats, just a little bit of, again, limiter. Nothing on those ones. I'm kind of surprised here that there's not a whole lot. And again, I think that just kind of goes into play with, what I was talking about the whole like EQ spectrum and the different frequencies and wanting to fill that whole like musical range, right? When I'm looking at like the frequency spectrum, right? Even this one up here in FL Studio, I like that view here way at the top because it kind of shows me like that all areas of the beat are filled out, right? I have, really deep bass lines through the 808s and those kick drums that are pretty loud in the mix. I have, my couple different layers of chords, right? That kind of stack together and I build the wall of sound in the, mid-range. And in the high range, I have things like these high-pitched vocal samples, these trumpets, these bells, and the transition, like those ear candies that fill up the whole range of all that stuff. I see there's a question here. So it says, in a whole decade, I didn't see anyone use T-Rax. Nice to see that you're using it. Are they comparable to the Wave stuff? Yeah, I think that they're really good. I haven't like bought new plugins in like a long time. I really like their stuff. I find that it kind of gives me like a bit of a different sound than Waves. Like I think that Waves is good for, in my opinion, it kind of is like, it kind of gives me like a warm kind of feeling. Like when I have like the Waves, like the gold bundle. I don't know. I have like all these Waves plugins, right? Like their EQs and compressors and a whole bunch of stuff that I barely use. But I find that Waves gives me like a bit more of like a warmer, like intimate mix. I find that like T-Rax gives me like a brighter mix. So a bit more like commercialized sound, radio ready, energetic pop slash EDM. But if I was making something like a little bit more like intimate, like, you know, with acoustic guitars, maybe some live drums, then I would, you know, kind of set the tone with Waves. I mean, I guess both plugins can kind of do the same thing, but I've always just found that T-Rax gives me that really bright, energetic sound, whereas Waves is a little bit more like intimate and warm. And a lot of, you know, those times, like for this beat, I'll just use like a lot of like the default like plugins or default presets. If I'm like working on like vocals, something more specific, I'll obviously like mix it and fine tune it, especially. But for this beat, I just kind of scroll through some of the presets that they have. I really like this one though. This was where was that? White 2A by T-Rax. This is like my go-to plugin. I love this one. Whenever I need something just to have a little bit more energy, I just add this one. The default settings are really good. But yeah, I'm a big fan of T-Rax. I'd say I use their plugins a little bit more than I use Waves plugins. Like usually on Waves, or usually for Waves, on a beat, I'll just use this one here, Renaissance EQ, just to cut out the low end and the high end. I'm sure a lot of plugins can kind of do the same thing as this. But yeah, I found it really good. Another plugin that I was sure I would have used on this one that I didn't use, but I use this one here, Valhalla Vintage Verb. I love this plugin. I am such like a reverb junkie. I love like adding reverb. It's my favorite effect. Maybe the next time we do one of these live streams, I'll break down another beat that has a lot more reverb, but this is such a good reverb plugin. It's so cool. It's such a powerful reverb tool. I really, really like that one. And yeah, those are like, I guess, those are all the plugins that I use in this beat. And I think a lot of my beats, it's kind of similar, right? Kind of similar workflow, you know, starting with those couple of chords, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 chords, getting the drums there, you know, adding certain like counter melodies and harmonies and ear candy, filling up the, you know, EQ spectrum, adding those kind of catchy melodies that get stuck in people's heads and give them ideas for songs. And, you know, structuring it, just taking away certain elements and parts and, you know, keeping it in other sections. So, yeah, no, that's definitely like kind of the same workflow that's, you know, I've been kind of perfecting and utilizing for, you know, I think over 13 years now from when I've been making beats, been working on this formula of it. It's definitely been... It definitely, you know, helps learning all this stuff, right? And I'm always looking for new ways to improve. I'll probably wrap up the live stream there. If there's any like last minute questions, definitely let me know. But again, I just want to thank you guys so much for tuning into this live stream. This was kind of fun to be, you know, a little bit more interactive, showing you guys some specific examples of this. Again, you know, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Click the link in the description of this live stream and you'll be brought to this website here, which is Lalalai. We have a bunch of videos on our YouTube channel here that talk about this. this specific plugin, how to use it, different instances when I use it. Like you might see me as a music producer, but I use this a lot when working on, specific beats for people, remixes, content creation. I've used this kind of in a podcast sense a few times too. There's a whole lot of stuff. So, and we post stuff on this channel all the time about it. So definitely make sure you guys, hit that subscribe button. And we have new videos and live streams coming soon. I see a couple other questions here. Someone was asking, what is your workflow when arranging from an 8-bar loop? So my workflow from that would just be, like looking at this, right? Make your 8-bar loop. Like when I made this beat, I pretty much had like a lot of this stuff here, a lot of these elements in it, right? A whole lot of stuff going on. And then when I map out like the rest of the song, like I take away certain elements, add them back in as the song progresses, and just continuously like build out the song, right? So you can see like at its core, these 8 bars, all of these elements have a certain place, right? Some of these only come at the chorus, some come in earlier in the song, like the verse, but I would say that just like make sure that you're, keeping things interesting, right? Because then you can build a whole song out of 8 bars or 4 or 5 different chords. But yeah, that's definitely a good question. One video that we're going to have on the channel soon is how to make a beat from scratch. And I think that'll be kind of answer a lot of questions too. But again, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the channel, tuning into this live stream. We're going to have more of these kind of regularly. If you're watching in the future or anytime, leave a comment too. Love seeing, comments from you guys. And if you have any other ideas of stuff you want me to chat about, music production wise, making beats wise, selling beats wise, all that stuff, leave a comment.